Inspired by the action dungeon explorers that came before it, Resolution tackles a genre with a story that can only make sense connecting the dots backwards. Filled to the brim with mystery and swift action combat, this new indie game will have you scratching your head as much as it will slashing your way through everything. Resolution's story is one that simply didn't make sense at its start. It's convoluted and just all over the place, at least until you get to the very end. This is all coming from a Kingdom Hearts fan, a series that arguably is the most elaborate convoluted video game story of all time. Deep in this dreamlike fractured world, we're escorted by this AI guy named Alamillaluis. Together as we traverse this foreign wasteland, we look for our lost memories that slowly put together a story. Throughout the adventure, I came across bits of story from the NPC characters detailing events and items leaving behind a bit of history with them. It didn't make sense at first, and even now that I'm done, I can't say for sure that every thread got a conclusion. Over the 15 to 20 hour journey, I traveled across the cyberpunk hellhole, coming across all sorts of monsters and people that all seem to have fallen into their own despairs. Although its story is going to be hit or miss for most, Revolution's gameplay isn't as polarizing. Yes, it looks and somewhat feels like Hyper Light Drifter, but it feels more like a homage than a knockoff. The top-down arcade hack-and-slash combat is solid. It's certainly tough and requires precise movement and agility, but not once did it seem unfair. Initially starting with just my melee weapon, I traveled across the cyber wasteland. Enemies came in all shapes and sizes, like businessmen with cybernetic enhancements and giant kittens in the desert. I told you this game was a bit weird. As I found my way into new regions, new abilities would too be discovered, fleshing out my arsenal of unique abilities and thus the combat. The first two abilities I gathered were a projectile arrow and the mobility boost. Both were linked to my stamina gauge, and that added a unique layer of strategy to the combat. Maneuvering around large enemies in groups, for example, required me to use my boost as a dodge, but that also meant I couldn't retaliate as well. Those abilities were also used outside of combat, in puzzles and when backtracking. So yes, there's hints of metroidvania gameplay here on top of all the combat. The backtracking would come in the form of destroying obstacles that used to be in our way, or solving multi-step puzzles using your newfound abilities. These were just as fun as the combat, but just as also provided a challenge that I'm sure would get the average player fuming. While it may look like some other indie games, that shouldn't be a reason for you to dismiss this game's looks, because boy is it beautiful. The pixel art looks amazing here, with an increment amount of details and animation that pairs beautifully with the lighting effects. At just about any frame you can freeze the gameplay and study the background, and most likely find something you didn't notice before. A lot of the beauty in this world is also due in part to the color palette. Every region felt distinct from another, with vastly different saturated colors popping on display. From the orange desert mountains to the lush green forest, I was mesmerized every step of the way. Even playing this on Nintendo Switch, the technically weakest platform this game is available for, I had no trouble admiring the spectacular graphics. Oddly enough, there was even an option to show an FPS counter on the Switch, something quite rare to see in a console game in general. Speaking of which, frame rate dips rarely happen outside the occasional loading screen, which is expected. If there's one caveat to being on Switch though, it would be that the smaller display might be a bit too challenging for people with bad eyesight. The camera view during gameplay is zoomed out, and even on large TVs, it can be a bit difficult to make out where you are. Across the over 10 territories in the campaign, techno bass that fit the somewhat dystopian cyberpunk setting serenaded my ears. These beats slap and go hard, especially during the cinematic boss fights that always have some sort of light show to go with the retro bit visuals. Going along with the heavy bass tracks are these cybernetic sound effects that are the cherry on top of it all. Hearing the slight static as I activate my projectile weapons help add to the world building and my interaction with it all. Ultimately, Resolution is a fast-paced action game that's one part dungeon crawler and another part metroidvania. It's clearly inspired by the best of the best like The Legend of Zelda and Hyper Light Drifter, but that shouldn't dwindle people's views on this. Resolution can easily stand toe-to-toe with some of the best in the genre for its gameplay alone. I wish I could say the same about its story, which can honestly be a bit of a mess at first, and ultimately not the real reason to go into this. However, if you're looking for a challenging combat system that's both tough and rewarding, Resolution is well worth looking into.